Megatrends. Now, megatrends are typically some long-time developments with big socio-technical implications. That is why megatrends can be taken quite nicely as a starting point, for example, for a challenge-based learning approach. That is why we explain here in the context of the Kozminski project, where we recommend to use the challenge-based learning for teaching the skills, the megatrends. Now, megatrends, what are they? First, before we start discussing exactly what megatrends are, a word of caution. Megatrends, of course, refer to developments for the future. But here a word of caution. Nobody can really make a prognosis of the future. Many of them have gone wrong. I just picked out one very extreme wrong prognosis here. I believe in horses. The automotive is a temporary phenomenon. This is what Kaiser Wilhelm is supposed to have said. He also lost his job soon after, but just careful. So we cannot really make prognosis. Most prognosis have been wrong. But still we need to find some kind of way how to manage the future and prepare for that. Now, and that is where the megatrend theory comes into play. The megatrend theory says that we can identify small little microtrends, and if they reinforce each other, they form a megatrend. And that is relatively stable for a decade or so. And there's another assumption behind that. It says, if actors believe in something, in a trend, in something going to happen, they're going to act upon this belief and then they make it happen. So it's a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Meaning that, according to megatrend theory, we just have to understand what people think, and then we make some kind of an estimation of their action, and then we have identified a megatrend upon which we can also act. So that is the theory behind that. Now we are briefly going to introduce here a small megatrend study which we're doing since like 20 years. The first one we conducted around 2009-10, in which we made workshops in the Triad, in Munich, New York, and in Shanghai, with a lot of companies which you see here and universities, in which we identified the main megatrends based on the managers' perception. And then we verified this in a congress which had the type of trends for the futures that fit quite well, with hundreds of, in that case, purchasers. Now, we repeated the exercise about a decade later, because recall the idea is that these megatrends are stable for something like a decade or even longer. And here you also see more nicely how it works. We have created a couple of statements based on the expectations, and then with a statistical tool grouped them together to form the megatrends. So that's how they are being built, based on a survey. That's again the background here. Now, what are these 5 megatrends which emerged? And here you see them. The first one was about a shift of growth centers. People believe that the growth is moving more from Europe to Asia, and globalization takes place. Please look at these numbers which you find in this bar, 3.71 and 3.73 the next one. So this refers the expectation, this is measured on a scale from 1 to 5, and what you're seeing is that throughout these 10 years of difference in both studies, we see that it's a very stable trend. People continue believing in that one. Another one is the acceleration of technological progress. This split on a statistical terms in the more recent one into the acceleration of technological progress as such, and the Industry 4.0 thing, which is a little bit different, right? Not only because the technology is developing, it doesn't need to have a cyber-physical system. So this is a new element closely linked. Then we had 2 trends, demographic decline and political instability, which in the more recent study they glued together into one: political instability and demographic decline. And finally, the increase in CSR, ESG, corporate social responsibility, environmentalism. So this is, of course, a very strong trend. So these are, generally speaking, the 4 big or 5 megatrends which we have identified. Subsequently, I will briefly touch upon them just for you to get an idea. And each of them can be serving as a discussion point for example, for a challenge. The first one, globalization. Yeah, what was the meaning of this? The shift to India, China, also sometimes called the power shift to Asia, from industrialized countries to emerging countries, which become industrialized countries, and also globalized and connecting supply chains. Of course, that can be the big challenge, whether that is not kind of a black swan like COVID coming from outside, some unexpected development which is challenging this. So this trend sometimes is a little bit challenged, but as we see here on the statistics of growth of global trade, it's still continuing even after Corona. So there is some chance that globalization, at least for the moment, is still going on, being one of the megatrends. The other one, Industry 4.0, cyber physical system, machine-to-machine learning. Very interesting, this chart which we put in here about the most valuable companies on the US stock market. And what we are seeing here that they are changing permanently. Every 10 years there are some completely different. And in the moment it's those which embrace in this new technology, the fourth industrial revolution. Now, just what is the difference and the speciality moving from the third to the fourth industrial revolution? Well, I3.0 was still human-machine interface. 4.0 is machine-to-machine communication, right? Digitalization, but now we have cyber physical systems, sensors including the physical world. And automation to autonomous system. Think about artificial intelligence, or more recently generative AI, which is autonomously acting. So this is a big trend with many changes to which firms, organizations, whatever have to adapt and use benefit of this. The other one is the megatrend, political instability and demographic decline, right? We have an aging population in the world. You see it on the graph. Everywhere in the world, fertility rates are going down. Yeah, we face an increasing demand for talent. The replacement rate is not there, and this definitely means the necessity of substantial changes in how we act, how we conduct business, and is apparently also linked to political instability. Right, this Washington consensus, which was dominant in the past, with free liberal trade being more and more replaced by the return of state capitalism, interventions in the economy, increasing political debt, protectionism, all of this what we had in the 1920s and 30s, again coming back, meaning strong a need to adjust for that also for companies. And finally, this is probably not very surprising, the increase of corporate social responsibility, environmental issues, right? The consumer demand changes, but also legislation changes. For example, the novel CSDD in Europe, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence law, which really extends also the environmental and social requirements from Europe to the entire world, right? And that's what we see again following this megatrend logic. You see a graph on the amount of publications on this subject, and it's rising, right? So this is exactly the point where we believe that at least megatrend scholars believe that trend is stable if it's really followed, and here we have some big evidence for that. So, concluding, we have a couple of megatrends, the growth center shift, acceleration of technological progress and 4.0, demographic decline and political instability, and finally an increase on CSR ESG. Now these are typical starting points where you can develop challenges and then apply it to the particular field, such as B2B marketing and the necessary skills. We invite you to pursue this approach. Thank you.